Alright, welcome back to the next training vlog of the year. So this is, I think this is only like the fourth session of 2022 in a weightlifting sense. And this is the first session where I did snatch, clean and jerk. And it's also the first session where I've done front squat in about 2.5 months. So you'll see why it was just 80 kilos. So we're just following basically the same plan again. So just start exercising. So this will take a couple of weeks just of more general training. Like, this is just training to training. I'm basically just working out here, just general exercise. Getting used to doing weightlifting sessions again that last longer than maybe 30 to 45 minutes. So I was probably doing up until from kind of October to basically now in January. I was doing sessions that were I was doing about 3 sessions a week, which are about 45 minutes long. I think I might have conveyed how COVID attacked me. I'm not in bad shape from getting COVID. I'm just in bad shape because I wasn't really training, and that was fully intentional. I intended to take a break. It wasn't at a point where I was demotivated or needed a psychological rest. It was just a planned break from training. I've been training quite hard for nearly 2 years kind of in a row, and I got some injuries last year. Not injuries in terms of like major things, they were just kind of general wear and tear things, stuff that needed a break. So that was the main reason I took maybe 2.5 months or 3 months of just kind of downtime. Very, very enjoyable. It was really enjoyable having days where I just didn't go training and I did other stuff in my life and maintained normal social relationships, which is it's quite interesting. That it's interesting to see what other people do in the evening. I intended to do more of that, but then I accidentally was hunting 4 times a week and then doing jiu-jitsu 4 times a week. So maybe I'm just not capable of sitting down and doing nothing. So body feels quite good on these. Like I was saying last week, the wrist was a little bit sore and shoulder, but it was sore in terms of just kind of stiffness from mobility, and you'll see it mostly in my front rack. So the bars on my shoulders, but the forearm flexors are quite tight, and that's probably from jiu-jitsu and just not front racky as much. I had a session during the week where I noticed, because it's been so long since I'd really front racked anything or done any kind of clean and jerks, that the front rack was almost unstable, which was quite interesting. It's not something I'm used to. Just obviously it's back already in this session, and the overhead stuff feels tighter again already, which is great. Tighter in a good sense, more stable I should say, not so much tighter in terms of mobility. The mobility is getting better again. Main thing from last year that is I need to really sort out is just my left ankle has just got really tight from some reason. I'm not particularly sure of the reason, but I'm just making an effort to actually stretch it out, as you can see in some of the warm-ups. Today's session looks like the Romanian muscle snatch complex, which is a great complex by the way, and then some no foot snatch for sets of 5, very, very light. Some muscle cleans and some strict press, and then some very, very light clean and jerk. Front squats again, and then those stiff-legged / RDLs. You know, something about that I've been kind of thinking lately is I really fucking hate the word hobby, and I've always kind of thought about that when people say hobbies. You know, if someone says something like hobby to me, I always think, oh, someone's like licking stamps or whatever. Hobby to me makes it seem like something is a side quest, you know, something's like fucking you know, it's just something you just incidentally do, but it's not the main reason. To me, like, I feel like the things most of us do for our hobbies mean a lot more to us. I certainly feel that way. You know, there's some of the reasons you're alive, and there's some of the things that make me the happiest after them. The euphoria I get, those endorphins I get after training, after jiu-jitsu, after successful hunting. And also, conversely, it lets you know when you have bad sessions of these or bad versions of these or bad days when you do these, they're the ones where you feel some of the worst you will ever feel. You know, and it lets you know that they're some of the most meaningful things in your life. You know, they aren't, it's like a side quest in a video game. That's not what they are to me. They're one of the main reasons outside of human relationships and dog relationships, obviously, which arguably are more important. These are the main things. These are the fucking main quests. These are burning the heretics. You know, these are the things which I fucking love the most. So the word hobby just seems, it downplays it so much. Now, obviously I'd never crack someone in real life when they say a hobby, but in my head I'm almost like, it's not a fucking hobby. There's me just looking at my phone, probably creeping on someone on Instagram. This session as well, by the way, was, you can see my little tiny heater in the corner. I think it was about -1.5 in the shed, or was it? Well, it was -1.5 driving home, so I'm assuming it's probably colder in the shed. But got the 2 hoodies on. I had my American Eagle, which I actually think, I don't know if American Eagle are even still in production. This one's like 10 years old. I just found it in my parents' house because the sheepskin one I had on wasn't enough. So I have that, and it's pretty good once you get warmed up. but the warming up part is less enjoyable. I see some people put like hot water bottles or stuff on their barbells before they start training, but I actually prefer just to warm up my hands in the heater if that's an issue, and then you just kind of get used to it. I don't know if you warm up the bar with your hands or your bar kind of accumulates, or your hands accumulate to the bar's temperature. One or the other, it's not too bad. The other reason I was doing for no foot snatches is because just to do something a little bit different. I just didn't want to do full snatches right now. I just wanted to do some no foot stuff. The cleans felt really, the front rack I kind of felt a little bit tight here, as I mentioned earlier. Just a little bit of that external rotation, a little bit on the wrist flexors, kind of forearm flexors. But the overhead stability is coming back, which is great. Right now, I will just keep doing this 3 to 4 sessions of weightlifting a week. At the moment, I'm doing 4 sessions of jiu-jitsu, and I will be doing that up until the competition in March. Then after that competition in March, then I will probably tailor back the jiu-jitsu to once or twice a week and start hammering weightlifting again. But like I said, there is literally no rush with the initial part of getting back into training for weightlifting specifically. No one ever did a session of weightlifting, or they never did a training block. The reason at the end they didn't hit the PBs or hit what they wanted to hit was because they spent too long in the prep phase. No one ever said that. Usually what happens is people don't spend long enough in that prep phase, and by the end of it then you're kind of beat up because you didn't give your body enough time to adjust, or give your body enough capacity, enough kind of resilience to get to training. So the initial phase of training should never rush it for weightlifting. For strength training, it's a little bit different. Weightlifting, you're always practicing a skill, so it's kind of a sport specific thing, so it's always of benefit to you. So there is never really an issue with just doing lots of light snatch and clean jerks. That's always going to be beneficial if it's good quality practice. Whereas on the other hand, for example, if you're a powerlifter, if you spend a lot of time, for example, in a high volume phase or a prep phase, or even just kind of light lifts with moderate volume, unfortunately for strength training, you're always kind of accruing a little bit of fatigue. So with strength training, it's not good to spend a long time in a prep phase, or too long in a prep phase. There's a very specific amount of time in prep phases for strength training or powerlifting, for example, where it's very productive and it's super important. It's arguably the most important thing that people skip out on, that we see a lot, is kind of high volume and prep work. But if you spend too long in that, you end up with a lot of fatigue, probably injuries, and then you end up with a very poor peak, or you get too, you get better at reps than you would at singles or whatever. So it's actually a little bit more nuanced in terms of programming for powerlifting or strength training. Whereas for weightlifting, you can be a lot more intuitive with it, but it is unfortunately a little bit harder to predict. Not impossible to predict, and you can certainly predict you're going to peak, but it's just a little bit more nuance and variance to it. So these are the first front squats I've done in I don't know how long. I think it's literally 2.5 months. So you can see I'm trying to keep a full grip when I walk the bar out, but it is it's very tight. I should probably do a bit more reps of these, and I probably will next week, but for now I literally just getting used to front squatting again. Emphasis on the quads. Technique is nice. So again, there's just really no rush with this. Just literally get back into shape, get used to being in the gym, get the body used to it, make sure I don't pick up any injuries from rushing through the weights too fast, as opposed to getting injured at heavier weights or some other issues. Like the last thing you want to get injured is just rushing through training. So another 4 or 5 weeks like this, nice and easy. And then we just moved on to some stiff-legged deadlifts. So these are just always trying to emphasize hamstrings, especially after a period of detraining, or under training I should say, just to make sure you are, they've likely degraded. They're not my strongest bit compared to my quads, for example. So I just want to make sure that I'm nabbing those. So I hope you enjoyed this training vlog. And next one you'll probably see his fits is again this week, if he gets to the gym. Thanks, guys.